the VGRT Gaming Podcast, episode 634, recorded on December 28th, 2021.
Welcome to the 634th edition of the TD Gaming Podcast and 467th episode of Video Game Roundtable. I am TJ Densby.
I am Scott Dirk.
And I am Jonah Falcon.
The VGRT Gaming Podcast focuses on game news from around the industry.
Well, not exactly game news. We're doing our awards show. Yay.
Hooray.
Not like the joke that was the Game Awards that we discussed 2 weeks ago. And, I don't know, the Steam Awards are... I won't say they're jokes, but they're not impressive.
Yeah, and, I mean, the Game Awards themselves are pretty much more of a commercial than they are an actual awards show.
Yeah, I read that there were 17 minutes of actual awards in that show.
Mm-hmm.
How long was it again?
Like 3 hours. 17
minutes of awards and 3 hours of everything else. There are some rules that I have for the Game Awards, and one of them is you can't have two nominees in the same game in the same category, which is why you only see one from each in best acting. No remakes, no ports, no remasters in the main awards, which is why you won't see Myst in the adventure game or Disco Elysium for the Switch being nominated.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to get that out of the way. As for the consoles themselves and the PC, I didn't do it via Metacritic Award because, here's the thing, if I did that, the PC and the Xbox Series X awards would be identical. First party and third party, all identical. It was basically which games represented were the best for that console, but also represented what that console could do and what its audience was as well. So, what we're going to be doing is we're going to have a lot of lists, and I go by the Academy Awards stuff. You know, I go into technical awards, too. And not only are we going to say what the winner is, but then each of us is going to say what we think was the best. A little hint, the games that won awards aren't the awards that I picked. They were more of a consensus review. I had no biases towards anything. I just made it, and then you'll find that some of my favorite games in each award were not necessarily the ones that won. And by the way, there are some games I discovered in the past month because I was busy doing all this research that I would have never given another look to until I saw the praises being sung by people who actually played it and the reviews that they were getting. And I started checking them out. I said, holy shit, these are actually very, very good. And they probably got dwarfed by some of the bigger games that came out. So I don't know if you know all of the games. I'm going to be interested to see what you think of the fighting games that were nominated, TJ, because you probably know a lot about the nominees than I do. And we're just going to start off. And oh yeah, we're going to take turns. First me, then Scott, then TJ, and then I will announce the awards. And I have all the envelopes here. And I will be tearing open the envelopes, just like they do with the Oscars. Isn't that great?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, first nominees are for Best Sound Effects in a Game. The nominees are Deathloop, Forza Horizon 5, Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, Resident Evil Village, and Returnal. And the winner is... this one wasn't even close. This one was by far the winner, and that's Forza Horizon 5. Because I'm going to tell you something, the developer that works on that, and also the developer in Turn 10 who works on Forza Motorsport, they go really hard into sound effects and all that stuff. They get a lot of sampling. And I heard from several people that their kids knew exactly what a car was, a real-life car was, simply by the engine noise that it made as it was driving. And I find that incredible. So I really can't disagree. I mean, Forza Horizon 5, TJ.
The one that stood out to me as a late entry that probably a lot of people didn't think about is Inscription.
Oh,
that
yes.
game has an incredible atmosphere to it, and it sound effects and atmosphere are one of the most important are two of the most important things in horror games, and Inscription is very well built in that regard. It is a very unsettling game, and a big part of that is the sound design.
Well, the other horror game, their Resident Evil Village, I think might have been my second choice.
Mm-hmm.
But sound effects, I think I'll go with Resident Evil, just because it was just such a creepy horror vibe and just
squishy. Yeah, very squishy game.
Yeah, go Resident Evil Village with all the dark, macabre, and just all the crazy stuff that was happening in that game.
So we're going to move on to the next nominee.
Best song. The banks of the river are lined with gold from The Artful Escape. City Lights, Ode to Somewhere from Deathloop. Cosmic Eye, Smell the Universe, Psychonauts 2.
And the winner is Cosmic Eye, Smell the Universe from Psychonauts 2. This one basically sold the entire game. I mean, when they released that trailer for just the song with Jack Black singing, I mean, that everybody said, okay, this is going to be great. It was sort of like a promise of what to expect, the weirdness from that game. And also the moment that Helmut Fulbear sings it in the game also is awesome too.
Yeah, Helmut Fulbear's whole section is like one of the biggest highlights of that entire game, in my opinion, and that music is a big part of that. I
haven't played it much, but from what I understand, City Lights Ode to Somewhere has become the song that really tells you what Deathloop is all about.
City Lights is a love song between two of the visionaries that you have to kill. It's an interesting one as far as like, because they're. I don't want to give spoilers away, but like they are a very interesting couple.
I think the Smell the Universe song was a really funny, comedic song, but I think I like the Banks of the River because it's a nice guitar and like soulful song.
Yeah, it's basically a folk song that is at the beginning of the game, and the entire point is that Francis is going to do a concert, right? And he's what's it called? He doesn't really feel it with folk song, but it's the opening song when she's walking around, and you really feel like his distress that he really is doing something. He'd rather be doing what he wants rather than what everybody expects him to do. And it's a very soulful song. There was an original song for Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy, which is a rip-roaring 80s style thrash metal type of song. I could only keep it to 3 nominees this year, but that might have been the 4th nominee.
Yeah, I will add also that like City Lights, it's an interesting one because it's from what I understand, it's not actually on the Deathloop soundtrack. The only place you hear this song is when you go to hang out by Frank's club in the game, and it's just playing, and it's just this weird kind of soothing crooner song in the middle of all this chaos that's playing over his radios and intercoms. That's, I don't know. I actually grooved to that song a little bit when like I stopped what I was doing and listened to it when everything finally came to a still. And I really think that's a really great song.
Yeah. We're going to move on to the next nominee.
Best music is The Artful Escape, Deathloop, Marvel's Guardian of the Galaxy, Narita Boy, Psychonauts 2.
And the winner is Psychonauts 2. And the reason that it won over something like The Artful Escape or Deathloop is that all of the music in it, while they're all connected, they're also very, very disparate. There are so many types of music in it. Like Compton's Cookout is different than Hollis's Hot Streak, which is different than, all of these. Every single level has its own music score, which is unique yet still feels connected. And the music told as much of a story as much as the dialogue did.
Yeah, it's that is a very eclectic game as far as just like the environments you visit, and you're right. The very, very different natures and aesthetics of music in each of the mines is an incredibly well thought out and well implemented set. Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy was like an odd one for me this year because like I'm so used to the movies in which the music is usually folksy, folk rock.
Yeah, this one went with 80s hits all over the place.
They went like full on into like
Iran and what other songs from
Deep Purple and just like Ronnie James Dio as a brand and like that was not something I expected out of Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy, but I can dig it because I really like that music.
Here's the thing: the movies made sure that if you're going to do a Guardians of the Galaxy game film, you better have a kick-ass soundtrack. Mm-hmm. This is also the only soundtrack that mostly had songs from a previous medium. I mean, there was one or two songs that were specific to the game, but it was the only one of these that was a jukebox game.
Yeah, I would go with Guardians of the Galaxy as well. I mean, I prefer 80s music, so that's going to be my jam.
Yeah. The Artful Escape was basically you playing a David Bowie concept album. Basically. And when it soars, you feel like you're soaring. I don't know if either of you actually played Narita Boy, but if you're really into 80s synth, it's the game that you want to play because it is heavy on the 80s synth, which is, it's pretending to be one of the old, consoles like an NES or and so that's why it's in an 80s synth mode. Have either of you played Narita Boy?
I have not, but I know what you're talking about with that. I've heard parts of that soundtrack, and it is that kind of jam. It's a fun one as far as like the sounds go.
And of course, Deathloop is basically Grindhouse.
Deathloop is good in that it does the thing where like it has a core theme, and it adapts that core theme throughout each of the islands and based on if you're going stealthy or aggressive. And I think that's always something that impresses me is just how much a composer can stretch one sort of core song into so much more than that one set. I also like we were just talking about it. I like City Lights. I like the Deja Vu song.
Yeah.
But like the song that also the music that also plays throughout the game, like there's a straight up version of it in one of the areas where if you go aggressive, it sounds like the chord progression to Led Zeppelin's Whole Lotta Love.
Well, here's the thing. Arcane, you never really know them for the music in their games. I think they just wanted to really sell you on the game with the music in this as well. And here's the other thing. Watching it being played, I could not tell it was an Arcane game.
Yeah.
It doesn't quite have that Dishonored look to it.
Yes. It's also one of the most, I would say, you're free to do as you please without too much consequence, outside of if you die, of course.
Well, if you die, you just start the loop over, I mean.
But, like, yeah, exactly. But, like, you don't get penalized for going loud. You can still go stealth, and it gives you some of the funnest tools that I've seen in an Arcane game to do both.
So we're going to move on to Best Writing, and there are 2 writing awards, and here's the difference between them. You have Best Writing in an action game and Best Writing in a narrative game. In an action game, it's just dealing with the writing. You really don't have that much control over the story. You don't really interact with dialogue. In a narrative game, you do. You have choices, you talk, dialogue could be different. So I had to split them up, or else we would just have adventure games and RPG games dominating the entire thing because their entire point is narrative. In an action game, you'll have narrative, but it's not necessarily going to be the focus of the game. So,
Best Writing in an action game: Deathloop, Halo Infinite, It Takes Two, Psychonauts 2, and Returnal.
And the winner is Halo Infinite. Now, this is surprising for me because Halo, while it's always had its moments, it's never been the talkiest or the most emotional of games. And this is the first time I would ever consider Halo Infinite to be nominated for writing at any stage. But there is such a depth of what's going on in this, in that you see so many character moments that it was actually shocking. And I would say Psychonauts 2 is like a little hair behind it, but there's a difference between Halo and Psychonauts 2. Halo Infinite also has the funniest enemy chatter that you will ever hear, and there's hundreds of lines that it will just make you laugh. Like a grunt will say, "If you came to hear me beg, you will be satisfied."
Yeah, they really upped their game on the enemy banter in this one. The grunts are really funny. The elites, the brutes, all of them. I got killed one time, and one of the grunts was like, "Let's see you Spartan your way out of that, you dead idiot!" And it's like, holy shit.
I had a grunt kill me and tell me, "I hope you taste better than you fight."
And then like
you have
the narrative.
Glibdub. You have Glibdub, who's the grunt who's in the propaganda towers, and he's like the Riddler, you know. As the game goes on, he gets more and more depressed because you're beating everybody until he's actually saying, "Yeah, I'm crying on the thing. I don't care."
Yeah, and like, not to take away from the narrative either. Like they actually they put together. You obviously have Master Chief, but they put together a good trio of characters that like take you through this game, and the pilot, the weapon, who is
she goes through a lot in that game,
and I haven't made it to the end yet, okay. But everyone I've talked to says that like the end, the final act of this game is very, very good stuff.
Let's just say the man hug that's in it is earned.
Deathloop, of course, I love that game, and it has, I would think, one of the best arcane stories that's ever been done so far. I think that a time travel story is very hard. Yeah, I would say a time travel story is very hard to do without getting convoluted or stupid, and I think Deathloop does a very good job of handling it. The endings are backwards, in my opinion. The good ending sucks, and the bad ending is far more satisfying to me. It feels like there's actual closure in the bad ending.
Yeah.
But I still think it's a pretty dang good narrative throughout.
You know, getting back to Halo Infinite, I don't know how far you've gotten into it, but the storyline weaved with the weapon is powerful. And I can't really talk about it that much. Did you get to the part in which the pilot hits his lowest point and a chief has to reassure him?
I have not, but
okay.
Yeah, I got
Here's
that vibe out of him.
This is the first time you ever see Master Chief admit that he's human and he makes mistakes. And if you've played any of the Halo games, Master Chief isn't exactly the chattiest guy. As a matter of fact, if I remember correctly, they said in Halo 2 he has like 17 lines in the entire game, and he's always the stoic. Here, he is not the stoic. And he's no longer this blank face with Stephen Downes just saying these one-liners. Here, Stephen Downes has to act. And when you finish Halo Infinite, you'll see why that this game won the best writing. Getting back to Psychonauts 2, it's painful for me to have it not win, because Psychonauts 2 is all about PTSD as well. It is about broken people and how they cope with it, and how their failure to cope with it, and how Raz helps them cope with it, and the resolution of the game. And I can't do any spoilers because it's still a fresh new game. It's also a powerful game that you would not expect from something like Psychonauts, because the game opens with a warning that this deals with real mental issues, and they're not kidding.
Yeah, Psychonauts 2 also had one of the most well developed twists, I think, of any game story this year. It caught me by complete surprise, and I think it was a very powerful moment that led to ultimately even a stronger second half of the game.
And it was so satisfying to become Goggalor at the end, without giving anything away. For those of you who don't know, Goggalor was from Psychonauts 1, in which Raz turned into a Godzilla-type character. And he does that at the end of this one, without giving anything away. It Takes Two had some great writing, but I also thought it was a very strange game.
I don't like this. I don't like those two people that you have to play as. I think they're terrible.
Yeah. But on the other hand, I think they're deliberately that way. I get the sense that, these are not supposed to be good people. It's hard to do unlikable people, but the other thing is that it just felt real to me, though. It felt just a little real to me. And you played Returnal, right?
Yes, it's got a decent. They took lessons from what Hades did well in the whole procedurally generated roguelike, and I think they did a good job with it. It's got if Inscription didn't come out this year, I would actually consider Returnal to be the better horror game over what was out there this year. It's a suspenseful game. It's a very interesting narrative going on, and it does that roguelike keeping progression going even when you lose type thing. I think it does that quite well.
Yeah. Anyways, we're going to move on to Best Writing in a Narrative Game.
Best Writing in a Narrative Game: The Artful Escape, Fuga, Melodies of Steel, Life is Strange, True Colors, Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy, and Sherlock Holmes Chapter 1.
And the winner is Fuga, Melodies of Steel. This game took me completely by surprise. I don't know anything about the series. It's apparently from the Little Tail Bronx series, but this game has some heavy subjects for what I basically saw as an RPG that uses advanced war combat. But it deals, you know how in a lot of Japanese games you have all these young people who are fighting in a war against, in a World War II type setting? They don't get into the kind of emotions that you would actually have in a war like that. What was the name of that game that took place in World War II? Valiant Hearts, I think it was?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, this game went that route, and it was surprising.
Oh no, they're cute cat people. This is war. This looks like it's gonna. This looks like it could be intense. I actually didn't know anything about this one. I'll have to check this out because like you said, it has advanced war combat style. I like that style a lot, and then there's the fact that it actually looks like it's well made. I had no idea this came out.
Yeah, this is done by CyberConnect 2, who's done the Naruto games and Little Tale Story.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to move on to Best Voice Acting. Ozioma Agaka as Juliana Blake in Deathloop. Jack Black as Helmut Fulbear in Psychonauts 2. Erika Mori as Alex Chen in Life is Strange, True Colors. Maggie Robertson as Alcina Lady D, okay? Lady D from Resident Evil Village. And Jen Taylor as the weapon/Cortana, Halo Infinite. And the winner is Jen Taylor as the weapon/Cortana in Halo Infinite. I already spoke about the storyline that those characters go through in the game. And once you finish the game, TJ, you'll understand exactly why she won. And getting back to other games, it was a tough choice choosing whether to do David Kelly, I think it was, who plays Colt, or Ozioma Agaka as Juliana Blake. It was a tough choice between the two because basically they have a lot of banter going on. And she had the tougher job, and I think she nailed the character better.
Yeah. I've talked about how well she does it at other points, but like one of the probably most impressive parts of Ozyoma's full performance. I can't imagine how hard it is to sound that passive aggressive and make it so convincing throughout an entire game.
Well,
and then,
you realize they broke up, and he doesn't remember her. So yeah.
It's more than that. There's a twist, but like
I know.
And as the layers of the onion get peeled back, like the full sense of exactly why she's like that makes her performance all the better. But I do agree with Jen Taylor. Jen Taylor Jen Taylor actually plays 3 different characters in Halo Infinite, and she plays a lot of those characters throughout the entire game. And those characters are 3 vastly different performances. The range that she puts on in Halo Infinite is very impressive.
So you remember when I said you can only have 1 nominee per? Which is why I couldn't put in Kelly. And of all the characters from Psychonauts 2, I chose Jack Black. But I could have easily put in David Kay as Ford Cruller because his role in that film, he has to go through a lot in that game too. The emotions that he has to do. And also Richard Horvick as Raz as well. I mean, the things that he learns are devastating to him. Yes,
absolutely. And then like Maggie Robertson, Dimitrescu, everybody's gonna be like, well, it's the Televampire lady and we're all horny, but like that's only half the equation.
Maggie Robertson plays her character well.
Yes, she puts on a very commanding and sinister presence. She plays a lord of a castle quite well.
Let me put it this way. You hear her and you say, yeah, she's 9 feet tall.
So like, and Maggie Robertson did the voice and the mocap for that character throughout the game. She did the whole package, and she did a very good job of it.
So anyways, we're going to move on.
Best voice cast. This is going to be Deathloop, Halo Infinite, It Takes Two, Psychonauts 2, Ratchet & Clank, Rift Apart.
Hey, and the winner is Psychonauts 2. Like I said, it was tough finding a single character to use from Psychonauts 2. And basically, they all melded together. I mean, every single character was interesting. Even the ones you wouldn't think were interesting. And some of them, and also we can't forget, a lot of them are really, really, really funny. Like Sam Boole and the animal abuse she does, and her discussion of making pancakes has become mimetic. She milked a bird.
Yeah, she's a little weirdo. It was like meeting all of the Psychic 6, which like
technically Psychic 7, but that's spoilers.
Yeah, meeting all of the Psychic 6 is quite an event throughout the entire game, and like they're these amazing people, and they all have terrible problems, and like exploring those problems is kind of part of what makes them each so very interesting and well played. And like you said, like I was about to say, I hate those intern kids, but
well, they hazed him. That's what happens. That happens. To be fair, after he's hazed, 2 of them, the tall guy and the guy in the wheelchair, are very friendly towards him after that. And they all warm up to him.
Yeah. But yeah, I like there is a great variety in Psychonauts 2, and yeah, you're right. Like every one of those characters has something worth being there for.
So, what game is there? Any other game that you think of that has a great voice cast?
Deathloop is fantastic, not only just because of Colton and Juliana. The Visionaries are very well played as well. They are They are a Koopa Kids menagerie of weirdos and killers and bad people that need to die. I particularly like Alexis Dorsey because that guy is a complete piece of shit, and he will you won't get to really kill him until close to the end of the game, and by the time you get there, he will have spent so much time convincing you of why you want to just beat him to death with his own arm that they couldn't have the guy that plays him couldn't have made him more reprehensible.
How about you, Scott? Now, keep in mind, it doesn't have to be a nominee, so if you want to say Trails from the Sky, Cold Steel 4, go right ahead.
I guess It Takes Two was good.
It's another one of those games where the two main characters are obviously the standout, but the characters that they meet along the way are really interesting. There's
The Book of Love is played by the game's lead developer.
I think he mocap. I can't remember if he voiced, but I know he mocapped. Either way, that Book of Love is. He's as horrible as the two of them are.
Yes.
and God, he's so chipper about it. But also there's just so many weird characters that throughout that game, like the Squirrel Army, the bee that wants to be a wasp. There's there's a space ape doll that's the girl's best friend that tries to stop you from trying to get back to her, and the characters are just weird, weird normal objects in life that have been twisted by this sort of imaginative world. But I think that the way that they're portrayed is really funny.
We're going to move on to Best Graphics. And, of course, we have two categories, Best Graphics Technical and Best Graphics Artistic. First one is Best Graphics Technical. We have Far Cry 6, Forza Horizon 5, Hitman 3, Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, and Resident Evil Village. And the winner is Forza Horizon 5. Like I said, they did a lot of work on that game. So we're not going to go over it again, and I would say that I think that Hitman 3 would be a close second because they had to do a lot of locations and make them look good.
Yeah, Hitman 3 is extremely dense and gorgeous at the same time. It is pretty amazing how much IO Interactive can stuff into one scene to make it so lively, and they do that with 6 different environments that all have vastly different narratives going on within them. This year the Dartmoor mansion was quite a standout because it is literally a Knives Out murder mystery happening within a mission. But I also think that it's even as cool as that is, it's among a lot of really cool missions in Hitman 3. Chongqing is a neon and rain-soaked city in China that you're wandering through looking for your targets, and I think that every bit of Hitman 3 is just freaking gorgeous.
And of course, Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart looks like a Pixar movie as usual. Mm-hmm. And also Resident Evil Village, and you could almost say it could have been nominated for Best Graphics Artistic because of the dollhouse scene.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Anyway, speaking of which, go ahead, TJ.
Best Graphics Artistic: The Artful Escape, Chicory: A Colorful Tale, Death's Door, Fuga: Melodies of Steel, and It Takes Two.
And the winner is It Takes Two. So yeah, speaking of a walking Pixar movie.
Yes, like I said in the previous, like I said in Best Voice Cast, a big part of it takes two is just the sheer variety of things you see throughout the game that are just like normal things twisted into this imaginative realm, and the way in which they do that with a lot of the stuff, like I said, the Squirrel Army, the bees, the child's playroom, the child's dolls, and so much more. It is,
and yet faintly disturbing.
Yes, absolutely. That game is a big, like, super charming on the surface, but always just a little bit of I don't think I like what's going on here underneath.
I think I would have gone with Eastward myself. I love the pixel graphics and the way they use the art and light in there to create mood. And I guess I have a preference for 2D, but this one was really good. And, they also had the little mini game with Earthbound or Earthborn. So that was really good.
Yeah, I would have not known about this game until I'd been doing my research, but Chicory, A Colorful Tale is exactly what it says.
I've been playing that. It's a really beautiful game. You get to paint every screen, and sometimes some of the characters want you to color in a certain way, but you only get like 4 or so colors per area, so it's a little bit limited, but it's a lot of fun. You get little puzzles, you trying to platform through certain areas, and you fight the boss with the paintbrush, so that's pretty fun. And it's a very relaxing game, as you can just color the background.
And of course, here's the thing: Death's Door is a Devolver Digital game. You can tell because it's a better looking game than it is a better play than the gameplay. And that's not. It's a great game, but it always looks better than it should. And Death's Door has that dour, monochromatic, all blacks, whites, and grays.
Yeah, Death's Door would have been my pick out of everything on this list because they do a very good job of using the water, the sort of watercolored world, as well as sort of thematics and filters to each area that you go through. The Death's world, where it's just sort of a monochrome black and white grayscale. The Witches area, where you got like this garden full of urns and pottery, and also trees full of red leaves. There's a lot of striking detail in that world. My pick wasn't on this list. Guilty Gear Strive is probably the best looking thing that I saw all year long, and it's amazing how much detail they packed into a fighting game.
I don't know. Does Arc System Works ever? We can't just nominate an Arc System Works game every year,
Yeah, but like they even went above and beyond what other people are doing with fighting games in terms of visuals. There's a thing I mentioned in a previous episode where the colorations of the characters are already striking, but they actually change and adapt based on what stage you're fighting in and where you move on the stage. It's so impressive to see that how much detail they put into the lighting and shadow aspect of their characters and the backgrounds actually affecting them. I think that we've gotten into 2.5D, and we've gotten to where Street Fighter has done 2 games in that style, and it never affects the character colorations that much. This is like you have a fully different character color palette based on if you're fighting in a desert cliffside or if you're fighting in the under arches of a castle. It's amazing what they did with that.
Best VR game, demo, I Expect You to Die 2, The Spy and the Liar, Resident Evil 4 VR, Subnautica Below Zero VR, and Wraith the Oblivion Afterlife.
Okay, and the winner is Resident Evil 4 VR. I don't even know. Okay, I'm lying. There was competition for this one, and that's Subnautica Below Zero VR, because you can sing the praises of Resident Evil 4 VR, TJ, in a moment, but I'm gonna say, anytime you have a VR game that's set underwater and it looks that underwatery, you're gonna be nauseous 2 times over, and that's in a good way because it looks great. And Subnautica Below Zero is a really good, it's a really good game to begin with, but that game was almost made for VR.
Yeah, Subnautica. I actually didn't know that there was a VR version of that, but like they are very good at designing their sort of alien underwater world. It's very lush and very colorful and very watery.
So sing the praises of Resident Evil 4 VR.
This game was a masterpiece. Like it's the full Resident Evil. First off, Resident Evil 4 is a masterpiece, and then they made it more fun to play than ever.
I noted that some people talked about. Here's the thing: in Resident Evil 4, the regular game, the movement was clunky, right? Because that's how it was for the PS. Was it PS2? PS2?
Yeah, you had the tank controls and the ready to fire stuff.
Here you can just turn around, walk, run, and all the other characters are still moving slow. And it's like, yeah, I'm just gonna wreck you while you're still trying to make your first move.
Yes, and they still introduce so many numbers that or such crowds that like it still feels intimidating. It still feels stressful when you turn around and see a whole bunch of them there having chased you.
No, I'm talking about those huge trolls.
Oh yeah. But like the controls and locomotion are the stars of the show in Resident Evil 4 VR.
The only problem is when you're escorting Ashley, she's still slow, so you have to keep on going back for her.
You can still tell her to hide, though, so that alleviates things. But just being able to handle 2 items in either hand is amazingly freeing in this game. You can have
to say OP. You can say it was OP because it is OP.
Oh no, I wasn't gonna say it's OP because it's just fun. I guess in a way, yeah, you're right, but at the same time, it's just fun being able to handle a pistol in one hand and hold the knife in the other, so that when you shoot a zombie in the leg, you can run up and start slashing at them while you shoot at other zombies. It's the same thing with the sniper rifle and regular regular Resident Evil games. You have to look down the sights in order to fire the sniper rifle. This you can hold it at your hip in both hands and fire it without having to look down the sights if you want. And I think that's like kind of a game changer in certain areas. Similarly, like there's a boat boss fight.
Oh, you mean the giant fish?
And I thought that was going to be a bad time because I thought the jerking because the fish tugs you along. Well, I thought the fish tugs
being
you
in a
along.
boat and this gigantic megalodon-like creature under the water in VR is gonna frighten the hell out of anybody.
Well, more along the lines of I thought it was going to be really uncomfortable. I thought it was going to be like the most vom-inducing part of the whole game.
Well, that's always a danger in VR, yeah.
Because you're being jerked along by this monster that is like making the boat jerk left and right and tugging you in a way that you don't have much control over. But they designed an entire suite of comfort options specifically around that one boss fight. And I think that's very impressive, the way that they put so much effort into the comfort and accessibility of this game.
They could have done away with the QTEs, though. I mean,
they did.
It was never.
There's an option in the menu to actually turn off the QTEs.
Oh, because if you have them on, they sort of like slow it down and make it easier, and they put these bright lights around it. It's like, yeah, don't fail. But yeah, I guess they figured out, you know what, the QTEs no one cares about.
They still have like it's motion control QTEs, so like it makes sense the way that you handle
so
the
you're now
controls
dodging
for it.
it. Got it. Okay.
But for people that are just like, I don't want to do that, they gave you an option. They just like say, okay, you can just turn the QTEs off and watch the cutscene, which I think is a great solution.
So let's talk about some of the other games. Demio. This is an RPG board game. and it's really fun. If you, it's really meant to be played with other people. And Wraith the Oblivion Afterlife. I've always been a sucker for World of Darkness, and this hems the toes the line of being a RPG and a walking simulator, but the story really made it worth it. I like the fact that all 5 of the VR games are not glorified tech demos. They're not even like Boneworks, in which they're like a concept for a game that might be coming. No, these are full games now.
Mm-hmm. Demio is really fun too. I like the idea of just like this virtual tabletop game that's also alive. I've played a lot of Demio this year, and they keep adding more stuff to it, which makes it all the more fun. They've been adding more dungeons and modules to it as time goes on. They're about to release their 3rd one next year, and they have done a very good job of capturing the spirit of like what I want to do with a tabletop VR game with friends.
Have you played I Expect You to Die too?
I have not.
Okay. It's it's basically a fun game exploring all the ways you can murder people, basically.
The best expansion is Animal Crossing New Horizons, Happy Home Paradise, Disco Elysium The Final Cut, Final Fantasy XIV Endwalker, Outer Wilds Echoes of the Eye, and Subnautica Below Zero.
And the winner is Subnautica Below Zero, which is sort of a mild upset over Disco Elysium The Final Cut, but all that really added was a few more stories and, well, okay, voice acting, and I will say, yeah, that was a chore, because what was it, 100,000 words in that game?
That is a very densely dialogue-driven game, and they voice acted every single line in it, including the voices for your inner thoughts based on the aspects of yourself you choose, such as like the brute aspect, the chemist aspect, all that stuff. All of that is voiced.
Yeah, but Subnautica Below Zero gets it because it's a standalone expansion, and it takes the original concept and makes a really good story out of it.
Yeah, Below Zero is I've always thought of Below Zero as a sequel, but you're probably right. It's
a standalone expansion, but still.
And it is a very vastly different biome from what you dealt with in the first game, or in the original game.
Yeah.
I like Happy Home Paradise a lot, and it's very interesting what they did with expanding that game, and the 2.0 came out at the exact same time, but I'm obviously going to put that aside from this and speak to Happy Home Paradise and what it does on its own. The idea of designing vacation homes for the islanders, or the Animal Crossing characters, is funny. And they have some very odd wants. There is a lion that wants a house that's just all toilets.
What?
He just wants a house that's all restrooms. I don't know why. That's his jam, his deal, and he is welcome to it. But I also like the fact that they also gave you tools such as being able to partition rooms with walls and cubicles and such. And that's something that you can take back to the main game and do to your own house, which I think adds even further value to your own customization of your island and your house.
Well, here's a question for Scott. Which was the better expansion for you? Was it the Animal Crossing New Horizons special, or the part 2 of the Cliff? What was the name of it? Cliffs and for Minecraft. Cliffs and Coves? Something. Oh God, I don't play. I haven't been playing much Minecraft.
Cliffs and Caverns, I do believe.
Yeah.
I've been enjoying the new Minecraft expansion and the Animal Crossing expansion. Yeah, it's more like an update in Minecraft, but I've been going. The mountains are everywhere now, and so there's a lot of climbing to find coal and iron, and then going down into the deep dark caves to find diamond and deep slate and just other materials. And it has a whole different atmosphere now. It's very well done. I'm looking forward to the Dark Cities in 1.19. But in Animal Crossing, you get to go to this. Well, I'm enjoying building the houses for the different residents that are there, and then you take a photo, and you get new items, and then you get Poke Points, so that way you can buy furniture from them, and you unlock abilities as you upgrade the houses. And you can, do different facilities. You get a store, you get a restaurant, and you start building all of that. I haven't played Outer Wilds or the Final Fantasy XIV Endwalker, but I've heard good things about the Endwalker expansion.
So for me, if I were to pick, it would be Outer Wilds Echoes of the Eye, because it adds another story which deepens this, and it makes it a little bit more emotional and resonant, especially if you have the prisoner with you when you end the game. For those people who played the Outer Wilds, the Echoes of the Eye was such a gift for them. It was such a great addition to the game that just added so many more layers to it.
I played the core game. I haven't had a chance to play the expansion yet.
Yeah.
But I love Outer Wilds. It's a very interesting time puzzle.
We're going to move on. We're going to go to Best Casual Game. And the nominees are The Artful Escape, Chicory, A Colorful Tale, Mario Party Superstars, Townscaper, and Unpacking. And the winner is Chicory, A Colorful Tale. Like you guys said, this is a game that you can just sit back and relax and just, that's the entire deal with a casual game. Just kill time, make colors. But here's the thing is that it went back and forth with this and Unpacking. Unpacking could easily win as well. Have either of you played Unpacking yet?
I have. I like that game. It's very fun. It's sort of...
Well, it tells a story as you're... It's one of those games in which the story is very in the stuff you're doing. You're obviously playing this girl who is growing up, going to college, getting a job. You played Chicory, A Colorful Tale, didn't you? Yes,
I like that game. It's very fun how much artistic freedom you get in Chicory to basically just color it. The game, you can treat it like a coloring book and just paint the world as you want. And obviously, as you go through more of the game, also just like the fact that you use different various colors or removing the color from them to sort of solve puzzles from the world. I think that's a very interesting concept in of itself, but I just like the artistic freedom in that game a lot. It's very fun.
Townscaper is also a hell of a lot of fun, too, even though it's just you laying down walls and the town's building themselves as you do it, and you cannot do anything wrong, but it's so fun to watch how the game reacts to your designs. Like, it'll start putting bridges and arches and all these things to justify everything you're doing. Like, if you close off a piece of land with roads, it turns into a little park. And it's just one of those games in which you just put it on, fool around with it, see what you can build, and then put it. There's no failure state in the game. And it's also a very inexpensive game. I think it's like, $5 on Steam now?
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to play that one yet, but from the looks of it, it looks very fun. It looks very relaxing.
Which, is there another casual game that you would have nominated?
Probably Cozy Grove.
Oh, yeah, that was considered.
Which, that was a sort of, it's a sort of life sim where you just you're on an island full of ghosts that
you're camping.
You're a scout, a spirit scout, and you're on an island full of ghosts and you help them with their problems, and you also build up your own campsite and go harvesting, like cutting down trees, harvesting, digging up piles of dirt, looking for treasure, all that jazz. Go fishing. And I like that it respects my time because you can only do so much in a day, and I mean like a real hours day.
It'll tell you it's optimized for 1 to 2 hours a day, and that's it. Anything else is not gonna. You know what it reminds me of? It's sort of like a brighter, more cheerful version of Don't Starve.
Yeah. Or a slightly somber and less grindy version of Animal Crossing. I really like Cozy Grove. It hit me in an interesting way earlier this year, and I think it became one of my favorite indies of the entire year.
I wanted to mention on the best casual game, I thought Chicory Tale was the best casual game, and that no Mario Party should be considered a casual game. How stressful those things are.
Well, it's you can have some hardcore casuals, I guess. Is Mario Party Superstars really stressful for you?
It is. It's stressful for everybody. It will make you less friends with your friends by the end of it.
It sounds like Overcooked.
Best Remake Remaster. Alan Wake Remastered, Diablo 2 Resurrected, The Great Ace Attorney Chronicles, Mass Effect Legendary Edition, and Myst.
And the winner is... Well, Diablo 2 Resurrected.
Mm.
You sound dubious.
Diablo 2 Resurrected is a good remake of that old system. I just man, Activision Blizzard sucks these days. I hate them.
Well, is that the only reason why?
Yeah, I mean, like Diablo is the franchise that's kind of like they basically scrapped all of Vicarious Visions to work on Diablo now, and I don't like that.
Well, at least they did a really good job.
I can't deny that. I cannot. They did a very good job of putting Diablo 2 back together and updating it in a meaningful way. A lot of quality of life improvements and the ability to switch back and forth between the quality of life improvements and the old game. It is what it is.
I want to talk about Myst for a moment, and it's interesting. For those of you kiddies who don't know what Myst is, it was one of the early CD adventure games. And it was quote-unquote 3D, but it wasn't really. Basically, it was a slideshow, and when you moved, they would just morph it to a different slide. You know, what they did with Myst 2021 is they turned it into an actual 3D game, so now it really is a 3D game, a 3D first-person game.
Yeah, you're not having to just bounce around between different scenes anymore. I really think I played a good chunk of Myst, and like they do leave a lot of the elements of what made it good intact. I will say, it's I kind of miss the FMV versions of like the characters in the books.
Well, you can. I think you can still buy the original Myst on Steam along with Seventh Guest and 11th Hour.
Well, that's good to know. But I do think that like having the ability to look around that world more and actually like not be confined to just select visions of all of it is pretty neat.
Yeah, here's the thing. You know, the original Myst was very entrancing to people because of the music by Jack Wall, who would later do Mass Effect, and the scenery. But now you have the music and actual scenery and actually standing there and actually feeling like you're there and not just looking at a pretty picture book.
Yes. You're actually in that world. You're actually in that world engaging with things like
lever and button puzzle.
Yes. I kind of wish they'd made a VR version of that too.
Oh, please trust me. That's if that isn't coming soon, it'll come because there's no way they're not going to do that.
Yeah.
I'm going to guess that Scott would pick The Great Ace Attorney Chronicles.
I'm not really interested in any remake or remasters.
Really?
So none of them.
Not even Myst? Because I know you liked Myst.
Yeah, I hate the whole concept of The Great Ace Attorney. I don't like that they're using Sherlock Holmes. It's
you don't?
obnoxious, and I don't like it.
He's been a
Diablo
public domain
2
character
feels
forever.
Overrated. Mass Effect is done. Myst is like, oh my god, stop it. And, I mean, maybe Alan Wake. Alan Wake is the only one that doesn't feel like it's run into the ground.
Well, here's the thing. For one thing, Alan Wake made its debut on PlayStation, and it's generated a lot of interest in Alan Wake 2. I mean, that's why it was made. I mean, that's why Microsoft re-released Alan Wake American Nightmare on Game Pass.
I will say this, and this is probably what makes Mass Effect my pick. They made the first game playable to me. I hated dragging my feet through the first game as it previously was. And the improvements they made to the Mako, the improvements they made to the shooting, it made that game less of a drag. And I appreciate that because I think the first Mass Effect game's story is better than 2 and 3. I think it is. And
you're entitled to your opinion there.
Well, and I think that the fact of the matter is, like, I like playing the story of Mass Effect 1. I hate playing the game.
That sounds like me and Dragon Age Inquisition. I love the story, but that game was just a drag to play it. I mean, at least in Dragon Age 2, I could do the cheat codes and have everybody die on the screen except for me. There were no cheat codes in Mass Effect Inquisition. Anyways, we're going to move on to the next one. This is a category that I know that DJ's interested in. Best Fighting Game. We have Guilty Gear Strive, Melty Blood Type Lumina, Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl, Persona 5 Strikers, and Samurai Gun 2. And the winner is Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl. I am kidding. You just picture TJ's blood pressure going skyrocketing if I said that. Well, obviously it's Guilty Gear Strive.
Yeah, there was no
competition here.
Melty Blood is the closest thing to,
I was about to ask
a competing fighting game that came out this year.
This is a game that I only learned about in the last few weeks. What do you can tell us about Melty Blood here?
Melty Blood is a very, very, very cult classic franchise that came out of it came out of a visual novel, and I'm a little fuzzy on the details. I've heard that I've heard that it might be considered an erotic visual novel, but
well, at least it isn't. What was the name of that game? BMX XXX or what was that? Or any of the Dead or Alive games with boobs?
Yeah, it's not that particularly graphic, but it is a franchise based in a very cult classic setting. But the fact of the matter is, the new game, it is incredibly well balanced as far as like its characters, its fighting, its mechanics. It's a very interesting. It is a fighting game made for very specifically its fighting game fans. It's really fun to watch too. Like, the game is gorgeous. I think Melty Blood would be the top pick and like a breakout pick in this year if Guilty Gear Strive hadn't come out. Guilty Gear Strive changed the genre. Yeah. They not only is it a visually stunning and amazing and impeccable game as far as like the character designs, the animations, the backgrounds, the stages, the music, all of that is top tier. But it was the netcode that they poured all that effort into that made it just like a genre-defining game. Because ever since Guilty Gear Strive came out and put in rollback netcode that makes online play basically as crisp as can be, nobody has done a different style. They changed the conversation around the game. Nobody does delay-based netcode, which is what old games have been running on, and is not optimal for online play.
And as you say that, a lot of Mario players are looking side-eye at Nintendo over that.
Yeah, Nintendo is the worst offender when it comes to netcode, and it's even more offensive because they have games like Splatoon where the netcode works quite well. But, like, ever since Guilty Gear Strive came out, every new fighting game that has been announced after it it either
They're
announces
talking about the netcode, right?
they either announce that it's going to have rollback netcode right from the get-go, or it's one of the conversations that comes up frequently among the community is this going to have rollback? Guilty Gear did that. They gave us the best netcode that a fighting game has had, I think, ever. And nobody wants to go back to the old ways anymore. No, not developers, not players. I think that if you send out a game anymore with delay-based netcode, it's probably going to be dead on arrival. Or at least you're going to have a very vocal audience that are going to say, why would you do this? Guilty Gear is amazing on every level, and it deserves this for more than just like the fighting game. I think it's a top-tier game in general this year.
So, the game that I would actually play would probably be Samurai Gun 2, because it's sort of the duck game sort of type of game, you know. Very non-serious, very 16-bit, you know. Just basically duck game, which itself is Super Smash Brothers, but, you know, very cartoony and very low-bit. But that's just me, you know. It's the sort of game that you just have fun. It's not the game where you're trying to... and it isn't as cloying as Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl.
Which one are you looking at? Hold on.
Samurai Gun 2. Oh, come on.
Oh, yeah. That game is great. I really enjoy it. It's the fact that like it only takes one hit to kill any given character at any given time makes it feel that much more intense.
Like I said, it's like Duck Game, except with slightly larger, levels to play on.
Mm-hmm. And like clanking off of each other is really like... It'll get your heart beating. I really think they did a good job of upping their design in Samurai Gun 2. The whole thing feels extremely smooth, extremely fun. And I also like that they added a single player adventure mode in this one, because like maybe you don't want to play with maybe you don't have a bunch of people to play with at all times. They actually put an adventure mode in this game, so you can actually just go through a little journey of your own.
We're going to move on to Best Adventure Game. Go ahead, TJ.
Best Adventure Game. Bonfire Peaks. Nosia. Life is Strange True Colors. Overboard. Sherlock Holmes Chapter 1.
And the winner is... Sherlock Holmes Chapter 1, which I know is a bit of an upset because Life is Strange True Colors is the big adventure game of the year. But Sherlock Holmes Chapter 1 is just simply the better game. And... as we all know, Frogwares really knows its Sherlock, and like their method of doing detective work is still top notch. You know? Yes,
they introduce a great deal of cool tools as far as just like investigative mechanics go. I really liked putting the crime scenes together in Sherlock. I really liked figuring out the evidence. I really liked the Mind Palace, where like you put those things together and figure out and like make a deduction based on how you think the crime went. And I really like that they provide enough clues in certain situations that two equally plausible possibilities are available, and like there's branching narrative based off of how you decide. What you decide is the more legitimate outcome of that crime. I was absolutely surprised to see Sherlock be this good. Like, I guess I shouldn't have, because Frogwares, again, like you said, has been doing this for years.
And they also did The Sinking City.
But they also took a trope from their older games that people made into a meme.
Yeah.
The creepy
Watson.
And they turned it into an entire mechanic in the form of this character named John, who follows Sherlock around. And
he's a ghost.
He's like a figment of Sherlock's imagination. And that's
by the way, we should actually say one other thing is that this is a young Sherlock Holmes.
Yes. And that's not a spoiler because it's
in the entire game mechanic, yeah.
And so he'll just appear at different parts of the world to interact with Sherlock and sort of bounce. He's like a funny little foil for Sherlock to bounce his thoughts off of. But he also sounds crazy at times because other people can hear Sherlock talking, but it's a one-sided conversation.
Sort of like the Joker in Batman Arkham Knight.
Exactly. I really like John as a mechanic in this game, and I really like that they took the creepy Watson thing and turned it into a very sensibly written side to Sherlock Holmes Chapter 1.
So one of the games that I would urge you to check out is Overboard. It is basically reverse whodunit, and not a how catch 'em. You actually play the murderer, and you have to deduce a way to make the Hercule Poirot type of character, who's actually a guy in a turban, not peg you as the murderer. And it also has a time loop sort of stuff, like every time you play, you learn more and more stuff about characters and their motivations. And I would strongly urge you just even check it out, because once you see the gameplay and the gameplay that's involved, you'll say, "Oh, that's really cool. I don't know why anybody didn't think of that before."
Yeah, I don't know much about Overboard. Overboard looks fun.
Like I said, you're playing a murderer and you're trying to get away with it, so you have to manipulate things so that the great detective, the Poirot character, chooses someone else as the murderer.
Nice. That sounds really enjoyable. Nosia is also one that's pretty interesting. This is a game in which it's got a Blade Runner game vibe to it. There is a. Am I still here?
Hello? Yeah, you're here. We hear you.
Nosia is built as this game in which you need to. There's a alien imposter among a crew of people, and they're all interesting characters. They all have very interesting narratives for you to explore. It's a single player game, but it's built.
It's a social deduction game, except you're the only player who's deducting.
Yes, and every single time that
they swap around, yeah.
Start the game, a different character might be the Nosia, and it includes you. You could be the Nosia,
yeah.
And in which case you need to figure out how to kill all of the other characters. And as far as like a narrative game goes, Blade Runner the game is the only other game that I can think of that did this in a single player setting and made it work.
That was from 1997 by Westwood.
Yeah, so I think Nosia is a real interesting experiment in narrative design, and also like a good nod to that classic sort of like that element of Blade Runner where you don't know who's going to be it.
Bonfire Peaks is just reminds me too much of Catherine in a way, because you're doing that block building thing. Just Catherine just freaked me out. It just has that.
Category of best sports games is F1 2021, Football Manager 2022, Forza Horizon 5, MLB The Show 21, Out of the Park Baseball 2022.
Okay, and I think you probably know already it's going to be Forza Horizon 5. But I will say F1 2021 is almost as good. It is a surprisingly good racer as well. And I have to say, there weren't many good sports games this year to pick from.
Yeah, there were a handful that probably wouldn't have even been considered on this list. But even then, Forza Horizon 5 stands over those things like hand and foot. F1, Madden, all those things have been kind of floundering for years. MLB The Show is great, but the bigger part of it is that it was just more the show. And the bigger part of it was also that they got it over to Xbox and made it crossplay.
The only problem is Road to the Show was dismantled, which was depressing.
Yeah, but I think like this is the building block and foundation for a better MLB The Show 22. Now that you have that sort of cross-platform, cross-play ecosystem for this game, I'm more excited to see what they do with MLB The Show 22.
I will notice, a game was not nominated was NBA 2K21, as people have started to turn on it.
Yeah, and rightfully so, because like the three big ones like F1, Madden, and NBA 2K, they've been doing those games dirty. They've gotten lazy with them to try to meet this whole once a year thing.
Oh, don't worry. When we get to worst games, there's another sports game that was done even dirtier, which I know depresses you. But that's for later.
But is it funny to say that, like, I've been enamored with the indies that have come out this year that have filled the sports gaps.
Yeah. Well, Out of the Park Baseball 22 is always that series has always been out there, and it's always been the premier baseball sim, text baseball sim for those you don't know. But that's always been an indie title, really.
Mm-hmm. Dodgeball Academia was an interesting one this year.
Yeah, I didn't know if that was a sports game or an RPG.
It's a sports game and an RPG in the same way that golf. It's very similar to Golf Story.
And also, what was the name of that boxing game again? That boxing RPG.
I know what you're talking about. It's less like that and much more like Golf Story. But that is pretty close to, like, the idea is that you have this story that's going on and you have your characters, but you also play dodgeball. And the dodgeball and
you also play dodgeball.
The dodgeball aspect of it is built very much like the old Super Dodgeball on Nintendo from back in the day.
Yeah.
And I like that in the way that I loved that game, so I really liked this game. It's got everything I would want, including, like, you have regular shots, catching, charged shots that make crazy things happen. Once your characters get knocked out, they go to the back end of the opposing team's field, so you can pass to them and try to trick your opponents and hit them from the back. It's a well-crafted version of, like, the Super Dodgeball with an RPG attached that makes me think of Golf Story, and I loved everything about that. The other one was Legend Bowl, which is a top-down, non-licensed American football game that it makes me think of, like, a pixelated NFL Blitz.
Or maybe Tecmo Bowl?
Kind of Tecmo Bowl too, but again, it's top down, up and down football.
Okay.
It is very fun. It is very cool.
I Tecmo Bowl was top down.
It is, but it's side to side.
Oh, okay.
But Legend Bowl, like, you can play just like exhibition and, like. But you can also, because every team is unlicensed, you can design entire teams, and you can design the players for the teams, including, like, coaches, QBs, all that jazz. It's got a very fun tournament mode. It's got a league mode. It doesn't have proper online play yet, but it does have, like, it does support Steam Couch Co-op. I really enjoyed the heck out of Legend Bowl a lot this year. It was the best football game by far, because there is no good football games because of EA right now.
Okay, so let's move on. You take the next one, TJ.
Best action or platform game: Hitman 3, It Takes Two, Kena: Bridge of Spirits, Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy, Returnal.
And the winner is Hitman 3. So Why Hitman 3? Well, here's the thing, and you probably know this already. The game is really dense, and there's so many ways to replay it, and there's just so much fun to find out different ways, and it tells you, you can just go in there and just shoot, right? Or you can try the most arcane, most elaborate assassination possible, using food, using items, using all that, and then all of the 7 Deadly Sins DLC just up that as well. And I know you were really looking forward to all that DLC for Hitman 3.
Yeah, they did a great job at supporting that game throughout the year with both free content and DLC. I really love Hitman 3 a lot. Like, I really do. That said, It Takes Two is, like, that game is potpourri, right? It's a lot of different. Every area you go through has, like, a different control scheme, a different gimmick, and they all work pretty dang well.
Yeah, I know. It Takes Two does come up with different genres to play in that game. It's not just a platform game.
Yeah, and I think it was just variety abound in that game, and I think it played very well for what I could see. It played very well from beginning to end.
I just think that the variety in Hitman 3 and also the metagaming of setting up assassinations to tell your friends, hey, can you do this? Mm-hmm. Sort of put it over the top.
Kena is another one where, like, I've heard a lot of good things about the way it looks, and I've heard a lot of good things about the way it plays. But I've heard a lot of good things about the story. But I've heard it has quite a few issues with the way it plays.
Okay.
I think It Takes Two was probably the better platform to me because you had the unique abilities for each character to have, and you had to use those two abilities in tangent to figure out puzzles, and they changed it every single level and area. They got new abilities, so I thought that was really interesting. And the Marvel Guardians had path choices, dialogue choices, so that would change what you did or how you approached a certain puzzle.
Yeah,
so
it was basically a really high action Telltale game, to tell you the truth, because it felt like someone looked at Telltale and said, you know what? We're going to turn this into a rip-roaring action comedy, which, now that I think about it, they could have done that with Tales from the Borderlands. Anyways, we're going to move on to the next category. Best FPS game. We have Back 4 Blood, Deathloop, Halo Infinite, Lemnis Gate, and World War Z Aftermath. And the winner is Halo Infinite. And I'm going to tell you something. I would have believed that Deathloop would have won when Deathloop came out. But Halo, we have not talked about Halo Infinite's gameplay mechanics at all. And I think the grapple shot changed everything for people.
They finally made a good Halo game. 343 did. And I think that was a big shocker because everybody I know was like earlier this year. Everybody I know was like ready for this game to flop. It didn't look good. It was just bad signs abound. And
you should give Microsoft credit because what they said was last year they said, you know what? No one's going to be able to buy an Xbox Series S or X right now. So 343, go work on that game another year and polish the shit out of it.
And I think, like, to 343's credit, I think if they'd blown this, they might have been – the Halo series might have been benched for quite a while.
No, I think they would have just handed it to someone like Arcane and say, okay, Arcane, let's see what you can do with it.
Yeah, so there was a lot riding on this for 343. I have been unimpressed with everything they've done with the Halo series since they took it over. This was astoundingly competent.
They're still working on it because they've been listening to people's complaints about the multiplayer, some slight complaints, and they said, we're gonna work on that. Right now, they're on their vacation, but when they come back, they're gonna, because that's the other thing. As someone who's very well versed in esports, Microsoft really wants to make Halo a player in esports again, because Halo 2, nothing competed with Halo 2. It wasn't even close. Not Battlefield, and I'm talking about PC games. All those games could not compete with Halo 2. Halo just dropped further and further behind in terms of online multiplayer. And I think Microsoft is in Ubisoft mode with Rainbow Six Siege in that they're saying, get this right. And oh, by the way, I know you complain about the shotgun, but the Mangler is basically the shotgun now.
Yes, thank God for other guns in Halo because the shotgun sucks so much.
And the Hydra too. I mean, the Hydra has a little mini, but the Hydra feels more like a shotgun than it does a missile launcher.
I like the shock rifle the most.
Oh, yeah.
Being able to Tesla coil someone in the brain from half the map away is my favorite new toy.
And oh, by the way, isn't that little clicky here when you kill someone far off the sweetest thing you'll ever hear?
Mm-hmm. And the fact that the shock rifle arcs to other players, so if by chance you get a double kill and you hear tick tick tick, it's so good.
Here's the thing: if you max out your shield, it makes everything you do have a shock rifle. So the shock rifle becomes double shock rifle if you fire through it. Mm-hmm. And I learned very quickly to get the shield up, then click to the grapple hook, and then quickly do that sensor thing that shows you where the invisible characters are. Because I'm telling you right now, I don't know why, but Invisible Elites became harder.
Yeah, I agree with that. But like single player and multiplayer, 343 finally did it. They finally made a good Halo game. Like they made it satisfying to play. They made a good story to go with it. But like the important thing is that they made it satisfying to play. Yes, we are looking at an incomplete project where like they have
Waiting
co-op
for
to ship
co-op.
later on,
and
they have the Forge.
Yeah.
But for what we have in this campaign and multiplayer package, a multiplayer that's free to play, by the way, you don't have to buy anything to get into Halo multiplayer, which is just mind blowing to have for a Halo.
Well, a
game.
lot of people didn't pay for the single player either because it's on Game Pass.
So like that is an incredibly generous offering from Microsoft.
It's more mind blowing for me for Halo to be on Steam.
Oh yeah, which I'm delighted to have. I would actually rather pay for Halo single player than have to go through the layers upon layers of Xbox PC launchers. I hate dealing with Microsoft's game ecosystem
Really?
on PC.
I find that hard to believe. Let's talk about Back 4 Blood. Back 4 Blood didn't grab me like the original Left 4 Dead did. It's a good game, but I don't know. The live service just rubs me the wrong way a bit on it.
Yeah, I can see that. Like, I think there's a lot of cool ideas in there as far as like I like the card system and I like the different characters having their own special perks. But I think that the game has more growing to do over the course of the next year before it really comes into its own.
That's like Lemniscate. It tried something new. It tried that time travel mechanic, which is a very interesting thing for a first-person shooter to do. It's sort of like they said, we're going to take Halo and we're going to take Braid and mix them together and see what we got.
Yeah. Lemniscate is... Everyone I've talked to about Lemniscate claims it's one of the most criminally underrated and overlooked games that has come out in a while. It's an interesting concept. Like the concept is that it's a one-on-one game with another player, and you both have a time loop where you send out where you choose a class, you go out, you engage the other player.
Well, you engage the environment too. You can shoot out stuff as well, but you only have a short period of time. What is it, 30 seconds? 50, something like that?
Yeah. And so after that, you go back to your spawn portal and you pick another class and you send them out there and you try to either defend your player or defend your soldier or like in your previous,
coordinate with them. Yeah.
Your previous loop goes out and does exactly what you did, and so you need to either counter your enemy's play or defend yourself, or just it's odd. It's a very odd concept, but it's
you end
also
up with
very
like
cool.
10 versions of yourself all doing different stuff.
Mm-hmm. And you can sabotage yourself too. Like if you walk in front of your rocket launcher guy, you can blow yourself up and end that loop.
Let's move on to the next item.
All right. Best RPG. Fuga, Melodies of Steel. Pathfinder, Wrath of the Righteous. Scarlet Nexus. Shin Megami Tensei 5. Tales of Arise.
Yes, and the winner is... Okay, I think you'll be surprised by this one. Fuga, Melodies of Steel.
Ah.
I know which is your answer, is the Pathfinder, Wrath of the Righteous.
Absolutely. I would have been like Pathfinder and Tales of Arise have been very good and very different for very different reasons for me.
Fuga's been getting raves from everybody though, and it's
and it sounds like I need to check it out because it looks like everything that would be up my alley.
Yes, and like I said, it is not a fun tale in terms of this is not exactly one of those hooray games, that you normally find from that genre. No, things can get dour.
Mm-hmm. So,
tell us about Pathfinder Wrath of the Righteous, which I believe is the sequel to Pathfinder Kingmaker.
Yes. It's a D&D based CRPG.
It's skin D&D, and it's wearing D&D as a skin suit.
It's top down. that game has one of the best character creators I have ever seen in an RPG. You can make almost anything in there and play the game completely different based on multiple times over, depending on what you choose.
Hey, when I was writing for Game Watcher, they had me doing mods, and some of the mods they had for Pathfinder Kingmaker were hilarious. Like they had one for Terry Crews and another one for Commander Shepard. So it's also moddable to have any sort of character you want in there too.
Mm-hmm. I ended up making you have a choice of race, you have a choice of class, of which they're like your normal core classes, but then there are like tons of subclasses.
Yeah, you have your Dungeons and Dragons 2nd edition level.
Yeah, I like a thief, I like a rogue, but I made a rogue that was specifically in tune to like spirits. They're capable of using like witch spells, and so it's I forget exactly what the name of the class is, but it's essentially a magic thief. And then you have your alignment, which can run from like the usual table of chaotic good, chaotic evil, chaotic neutral, lawful, and all that jazz. You have a choice of like character perks, like is your character adventurous, which would cause them to like gain more treasure from things, or are they a pyromaniac, which would cause them to delight in fire spells but also take less damage from them, or are they unlucky, which causes your rolls to like do things. And you have stuff like that, and then you have beliefs in gods, which you can choose to be atheist, or you can choose to adhere to like the beliefs in a certain deity in the game.
Yeah, they just took Pathfinder Kingmaker and just doubled it in every way. Just fattened it like a Christmas turkey.
And I'm not going to go too much longer, but that's all choices you make before you even start the game. The game's narrative itself is a very, very interesting tapestry of like hell is basically opening up, and you need to either need to stop it or find a way to take control and rule it. And it's. Oh,
you forgot to mention, you also have an alignment too.
And there's all sorts of characters you meet that have their own alignments, that have their own likes and dislikes that will play into the narrative dialogue. You make your narrative choices, the world responds to you, and there are consequences that happen well down the line and stay intact based off of what you choose.
You know what? It just makes me wonder, I wonder if Baldur's Gate 3 and the Pathfinder series are feeding off each other, seeing what the other one is doing and say, yeah, we should do that too.
Yes, I can see that totally, because I feel like they're very, very, very similar games. I really enjoy everything they did with Pathfinder, and it makes me even more excited to see how Baldur's Gate ups the game in 2022.
Right. So here's the thing. Fuga winning is sort of an upset because I'm going to say this right now. Tales of Arise is getting the best reviews ever in that series, and that has been a very long series.
Yes. It's an action RPG. When you get into battles, you have up to 4 party members that will be in the fight, like basically, and it's not turn based. You basically run up to enemies, do sword attacks, do different techniques and skills, while your casters will kind of sit in the back and cast spells to either heal you or do magic damage. In very, very many ways, it reminds me of all of the reasons I like Star Ocean, which there hasn't been a good Star Ocean game in years. And this game is a very focused narrative. It's basically like you have this planet of people, and another planet, it's like a mobile planet, basically came and invaded to steal the magic energy from this planet and turn them into.
Now you make me think of Omicron 1.
I mean, they basically come down and steal the energy from the people and turn them into slaves, and then form this contest in which whoever can amass the most energy from the slaves can become the ruler or whatever. And the story is like this group of people form a rebellion and fight back against the people trying to steal energy from the planet. It's a very focused narrative, but the characters are pretty enjoyable, and the gameplay grind is actually quite fun. I really enjoyed Tales of Arise quite a lot. That's the game I've been playing over my entire winter break.
I should also point out, the other two games are also Japanese as fuck. Scarlet Nexus is the most anime game that ever animated.
Yep. I hear a lot of good things about it, though, and I haven't tried it yet. I would like to. I'll probably make it if I have free time in the coming year, I'm probably going to make time to get into that at some point.
Yeah, and Shin Megami Tensei, here's the thing. It is Persona without any of the charm. It literally is Persona, by the way. Persona came from Shin Megami Tensei. So Persona just did everything that Shin Megami Tensei does and does it right and makes it... Shin Megami Tensei is just for hardcore people who like punishment.
Yeah, I agree with that. And it's... Shin Megami Tensei is like Persona's much meaner older brother.
Basically, yes.
That game has no time for your questions.
It has no time for you to go and have homework. What is all this life sim crap? Get that out of here.
It has no time for your questions or your weakness. You better get good, and you better do
grind
it fast.
you better grind like there's no tomorrow.
On the RPG category, for me would be Legend of Heroes Cold Steel 4, because I was so addicted to just finishing the story of this epic journey that I've been on with the Trials games. So it just, continues that story, and I was very hooked into finishing it.
Let me ask you a question. Is Cold Steel 4 the last of that plot arc?
It's the last one of the Erebonian story arc. The next one is Reverie, which goes back to Crossbell, and then after that is the Kuro games, which will be in Calvard Republic. So they have a new story arc with every different series of games within that series. But they, the same world, and they'll, I guess, flow. They'll have references to various characters, but they do have their own story arc.
We're going to move forward to the next category.
Best strategy game: Age of Empires 4, Evil Genius 2, World Domination, Jurassic World Evolution 2, King's Bounty 2, Wildermyth. And
the winner is Jurassic World Evolution 2. Which is, if you had told me this at the beginning of the year, I would have been surprised too.
Yeah, I think that's a great concept in and of itself, and I think it's especially made better by the fact that they actually have worked with the original stars to bring more life to the stories of that game. And
they also improved from the original game, because the original game wasn't that hard at all, and it was...
The dinosaur DNA creation system too is just ridiculously chaotic and fun. The idea of making a pterodactyl with a Tyrannosaurus head is just bizarre and hilarious.
So at the beginning of the year, I would have thought Age of Empires is going to be fantastic, and it is very good. It just hasn't grabbed me like previous Age of Empires games. And Evil Genius 2. I hate to say this, but it became sort of it became a slog to play.
Mm.
I mean, when you start off the game, it's like, yeah, but that game just weighs you down and becomes not fun. And then you find out, no matter what, your evil genius is going to wreck whatever attacks the base anyway, even if they wreck everything else. They come against your evil genius and they say, bang, you're dead. And it's like, oh, wait, all of that was a waste of time.
I still enjoyed Evil Genius 2 probably more than any of these other picks, just because I love that concept.
Theme? Yeah, the theme is great. Yeah.
And then just how they expanded with the schemes that you can do inside and outside of your base. I like the henchmen too. The specialized henchmen that you can make part of your board, and then decide whether or not you want to destroy them if they F up. Everything about that style, everything about the concept of Evil Genius is just silly and fun, and I know it. I agree with you. The late game needed extra work, but I enjoy the journey to the late game, and I really enjoy how they sort of upped the. I enjoy how they upped the fun and concepts that they introduced in the first Evil Genius.
Yeah, I mean, if I was to pick a game for me that I would really want to play, and that's King's Bounty 2, because Heroes of Might and Magic has always been my shit, and that's basically what King's Bounty is. Because here, for those who don't know, Heroes of Might and Magic, the first Heroes of Might and Magic, was actually a sequel to King's Bounty. And I always enjoyed doing that. Wander around the map, pick up the resources, build up your troops, and then just have your armies fight against each other.
Yeah.
Have you played Wildermyth?
I have no idea. I don't know anything about this game.
So, how do I put this? It has a lot of RPG elements, but it's more of a strategy game in which you're on a board, and it's basically conquer regions sort of thing. It's a tactical strategy game, but it's tough to describe. It's more strategy than it is RPG. It's like King's Bounty 2. And if you look at people's reaction, they love this game. It is already a cult hit.
Best Switch game, Death's Door, Ender Lilies, Quietus of the Night, Metroid Dread, Monster Hunter Rise, Shin Megami Tensei 5.
And the winner is, I'm pretty sure you can guess it's Metroid Dread, because that far outstripped every other Switch game this year. We absolutely needed a Metroid game, and they delivered. You got hunted by these robots and had to figure out how to defeat them, and you got to explore and do all the things you would do in Metroid, and listen to the music and just get lost in another Samus Aran adventure.
Yeah, when I started up Metroid Dread, and it did that thing where you're looking out into the depths of space, and then the title screen, and then the title fades in, and you get that start button. And then they go right into that recap of last time on. I got a little misty-eyed because that is an entire aesthetic that is very signature to this franchise, and
the thing is that this game actually lived up to that title of Dread.
Yeah, and then there's the fact that it's a very smooth running game. Mercury Steam has a good handle on how to do Nintendo platformers. They handled the criminally underplayed and underrated Metroid Samus Returns remake on the late cycle of the Nintendo DS. So the fact that they got another chance from Nintendo to make this is very cool to me. It's the highest selling Metroid game in the series by far. It's a love letter to the fans that have stuck with it. It's not an easy Nintendo game. It's actually it's actually a super hard game to beat. Not the least for which are the Emmys that hunt you around different sections of the game and kill you instantly if you don't counter them. But yeah, it's a wonderful game all around. Monster Hunter Rise was a super high contender earlier this year, and I really think I think Capcom did an amazing job of fitting that much Monster Hunter and that much quality into a Nintendo Switch game.
Yeah, but they made the mistake of releasing it the same year as Metroid Dread.
Yeah, they did. There's one other one that there's a game that's it's for every reason that it was expanded, I should love it more than anything else, but I kind of want to see more. Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury. I love that concept. I love the idea that you're trying to gain and amass power, and as this sinister threat that is this angry ass Bowser is just looming in the background, and he will randomly wake up and just make your life harder. I love that concept. What I want is for that to be expanded into a multi-world, multi-level game. I think it's great that they put Super Mario 3D World on Switch because I think that's a great game anyways, and I love the addition of Bowser's Fury, but I want like a whole game that's just Bowser's Fury.
Some games that didn't make it, which could have easily been in the nominated list, like Bravely Default 2 came out this year. No More Heroes 3 was also a game that came out this year, and both of them were really popular, but didn't quite make the list. And by the way, there's one game that came out this year, which I was shocked that I had to leave off completely from every category, and that's Little Nightmares 2, which did not get a nomination for anything, and it easily could have.
Yeah, that was an impressively stark and disturbing little platformer. I'm glad it finally came out, and I think it's a very interesting game. I just think that like out of the games that we have here, you know, like outside of Metroid Dread and Bowser's Fury, it was actually kind of a weak year for Nintendo's first party titles.
Actually, it was a pretty weak year for video gaming as a whole because basically everybody's pushed stuff to 2022 because they couldn't get it ready for this year.
Yeah,
it was a fairly weak year. But it had some awesome games, obviously.
But, like, Nintendo had a lot of first-party things that came out this year, and not all of them were great. WarioWare was okay. Mario Golf was the worst Mario Golf. The Mario Golf Super Rush was the worst Mario Golf game that's ever come out in that franchise.
Here's the thing, Nintendo. Listen, when you make a golf game, one of the core mechanics should not be having to run after your ball with a time limit.
They made that Game Builder Lab, which was an interesting concept, but like it didn't really catch on all that much. I think Dreams did it better, to be honest. I think
it's because you had Super Mario Maker, and that sort of overshadowed any of the Make a Game games on the Switch.
Yeah. Super Mario Maker most certainly did it better, and I think Dreams is a better version of Games Builder Garage. But, like, yeah, I think that outside of Metroid Dread and Bowser's Fury, like, Nintendo did have quite a few releases this year, and they just weren't all that great.
Anyways, we're going to move on to Best Xbox Series XX Game, and the nominees are Forza Horizon 5, Halo Infinite, It Takes Two, Psychonauts 2, and Resident Evil Village. And the winner is Halo Infinite. And if you had told me Halo Infinite would have been the Xbox Series X game of the year at the beginning of the year, I would have thought you were crazy. And here's the thing, even when Halo games are really, really good, most of the impact they have is on the multiplayer side, really. And this year, Halo Infinite managed to outshine some really tough competition. Because if I said that the Xbox Series X game of the year was Forza Horizon 5 or Psychonauts 2 or Resident Evil Village, you probably wouldn't have blinked. You said, yeah, that's about right.
No, like once Halo Infinite came out, once we finally got a chance to play it, once we finally got a chance to dig into it, like the delays paid off. I have to admit, the putting things in priority perspective paid off, and it's pretty awesome how. I mean, this is going to be like something that people are going to be playing for a pretty dang long time, well after the credits roll. Because
they have a Halo Fractures and there's additional content coming out, and I'm wondering if they're going to actually have a Halo 7, or if they're just going to add expansion on expansion on expansion. Because the ending of Halo Infinite, without giving anything away, has three sequel hooks. The ending, the mid-credits ending, and the post-credits endings are all sequel hooks.
Yeah. Yeah, I would have been all over Psychonauts 2 to win this if Halo Infinite hadn't been so dang good.
Hey, Psychonauts, hey, look, tough choice between Halo Infinite and Psychonauts 2, because Psychonauts is that good, people.
Mm-hmm.
It is that good.
Yeah, none of these games that are listed here are bad. Every one of them is a really, really, really good time. And it's going to come up again in this next category.
Anyways, go ahead with best PlayStation 5 game, TJ.
Best PlayStation 5 game: Deathloop, Guilty Gear Strive, Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, Returnal, Tales of Arise.
And the winner is Deathloop. And we know how you feel about Guilty Gear Strive, but for a lot of people, it's Deathloop.
I mean, it was for me. It was either going to be Deathloop or Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, because Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart is amazing, and it is a very good demonstration of what the PlayStation 5 can do.
Returnal got all the hype too this year for the PlayStation 5.
Yeah, Deathloop is the full package. It's fun. It's playable how you want. Be loud or be quiet. You amass an awesome arsenal. The characters that you go after are fun are very interesting, and then the banter between Juliana and Colt is just a constant companion to an already good experience. That said, Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, it's so much more than a tech demo for PlayStation 5.
Well, but before we go on, it is a beautiful game.
Yeah, Insomniac, I don't know where Insomniac finds the time to do Spider-Man Miles Morales and work on this at the same time, and work on the next Spider-Man sequel, and work on Wolverine.
Well, Obsidian is working on the next Outer Worlds game and working on Avowed. So they're still working on Grounded. I mean, a lot of these big companies can multitask, apparently. Yeah,
but Insomniac is just putting out banger after banger after banger, and this is another one.
And you forgot Sunset Overdrive.
Yeah, and Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart was like being able to yank yourself between entire game worlds, and then the worlds being bustling and full of characters that are just all gorgeous. And like, even if you're up close, like, it doesn't get any less gorgeous. Like, the texture on the fur, the texture of the colors, the characters, the shininess of the metal. Dang, it's cool. It's just dang cool to be in that world.
I know a lot of people are going to be annoyed that Returnal didn't win, because there's a lot of people who are ride or die with that game.
Rightfully so. It's pretty dang good. Like, I think Housemarque really made an impact this year. And, like, this was a group that not many people knew about coming into the year, and now they're owned by PlayStation and inevitably going to be doing more PlayStation projects. And I'm really interested to see what else they put together, whether it's more for Returnal or if they go after a new project, because they definitely earned their keep with Returnal. It's one part roguelike, one part action platformer shooter, one part bullet hell dodger. And then, like, it's got an interesting, weird, like, suspenseful and unsettling narrative to it as you explore this time loop of death.
And we move on to Best PC Game. The nominees are Forza Horizon 5, Guilty Gear Strive, Halo Infinite, Hitman 3, and Psychonauts 2. And the winner is Forza Horizon 5. And I think what pushed Forza Horizon 5 over the top is that while the game is gorgeous on a console, they said, if you have a PC, look what we can do with this. And you could have a crazy looking game that is just mind-blowingly beautiful.
Yes, they did quite a job on building they did such a good job at building a Mexico that doesn't just have the typical orange tinted color palette.
Mexico has mountains and beaches and jungles and all that stuff too, you know.
Yeah, it has vegetation and green in it. So yes, congratulations to them to Playground for realizing that is a thing and putting it in their game. I
I'm going to tell you something. There's someone I know who's a PC-aholic, and when he launched the game and it opened up all these options, the graphic options, he had a hard on because it allows you to tweak the engine any way you like.
Yeah. They really did a good job with accessibility in this game as well. Like as far as just like visuals, sound, control, representation. They really did a great job at building all of that stuff up to make it inclusive to as many people as possible.
As a matter of fact, the first thing you do when you open up the game, it actually talks about your accessibility options in terms of controllers and all that stuff. And you know what? There's a lot of people who cheat by putting the accessibility controller so that it's super easy to play. They don't care.
Yeah, if you're playing in single player mode, then there's an option that makes that slows down the race so that you can better take in what's happening. And I think that's an interesting option in of itself to just like. I don't think I've ever heard of another racing game doing that, where you can actually just slow down the action.
You know, I think it's in Forza's blood because remember, Forza was that thing that invented the rewind button. If you screwed up, you just rewind, and it doesn't care. So okay, you can rewind as far as you like.
Yeah, that kind of slow things down and make them more like digestible is in Super Monkey Ball. Banana Mania, but it's like, hey, this is a crutch. You're a loser if you take it. Forza is like, no, go ahead, it's fine. You do what you need to do. We'll be here for you.
By the way, Super Monkey Ball just missed being on the remakes remasters list.
It was a good one. And
so did Near Replicant. Was it? It's called Near Replicant, right?
Near Replicant version, blah 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 blah. So many numbers. Yeah, I really enjoyed my time with Super Monkey Ball. The thing that caused that game's downfall is that the fact that they had to build it in a new engine, because the original arcade engine that was available for the GameCube versions doesn't exist anymore or isn't accessible. The fact that they had to rebuild this game in a new engine messed with the physics in certain ways, and it really rubbed longtime players the wrong way.
Okay, so now we're getting to the fun part. We have 2 categories left, and we have Worst Game of the Year. And here's the thing. Worst game didn't necessarily mean a low Metacritic score. Almost all of these games have something morally wrong with them. Things that are so... Not only do they play bad, but it's almost like the publisher was saying, fuck you. Except for one of them. One of them was just incompetent. So the nominees we have for Worst Game of the Year is Balan Wonderworld, Battlefield 2042, eFootball 2022, Grand Theft Auto The Trilogy, the Definitive Edition, and Madden NFL 22. And it's so sad to do Madden NFL 22 because John Madden just passed away yesterday.
Yeah.
And the loser is, and I'm pretty sure you know there was no competition for this, Grand Theft Auto The Trilogy, the Definitive Edition.
What a scam. What a scam that whole thing is. Man, I was so excited to go back to Vice City and play it on like a new platform and re-explore it. And good Lord, did everybody thankfully talk me out of it, because God.
Here's the thing. This is the worst part, though, and we discussed this in a different podcast. If you were a PC owner, you got royally fucked. Because not only was this a piece of shit, but guess what? You couldn't buy the original anymore. Because they took it off the Steam stage. Like, no, you can't have that. You can have this instead.
This game crashed the Rockstar game launcher for like 48 hours after it launched. Which means that not only could no one play this steaming pile of garbage, they also couldn't play Red Dead Redemption 2 or Grand Theft Auto Online because of it. And then they pulled this whole thing where they had to quote unquote remove files because they left some things in there that weren't supposed to be there, aka additional music that they didn't have the licensing to.
So here's the thing. Let's talk about all the nominees and how each and every one of them are sleazy. The least sleazy one is Battlefield 2042 because it was just a day one wreck. It was even the day one patch could not save it. It is a wreck, and it's going to take them months to fix it.
Yeah, and I mean, Battlefield 2042 can eventually be good with the amount of effort and the amount of push that EA is putting behind it.
Yeah, here's the thing. I wonder if fans will stay with it, though. That's the problem.
You don't put Vince Zampella of Respawn in charge of the whole franchise if you're not invested in making it work. Right. In my opinion, and you don't have to agree with this.
Oh, wait, you're going to talk about eFootball 2022?
No.
Okay, well, here's the thing. Before you get... I know eFootball 2022 must be fucking depressing for you because I know you really loved PES. And now it's POS.
Yeah, I really wanted eFootball to succeed because I thought the free-to-play model is something that should be applied to all sports games instead of this yearly stupid-ass fucking $70 purchase of a new roster with nothing fixed and usually more things broken. But then they just tripped and floundered over themselves so hard out of the gate that it just – yeah, that –
Remember when Pro Evolution Soccer was actually a viable alternative to FIFA?
Mm-hmm. This was a rush job by Konami, and they paid for it.
Oh, trust Konami. I mean, they've been doing all sorts of wonderful video game decisions lately, haven't they?
Yep. Balan Wonderworld is a tragedy.
Here's the thing. But it's still sleazy for a reason. And when you go, you'll see all these positive reviews, but when you look closer, wait a minute. Some of these are just copies of the other positive reviews, and then you realize, oh my God, they hired their PR firm to make fake positive reviews for your game in the user comments. And that made this game reviled. Because Balan Wonderworld is done by the guy who did Sonic, right? And it was his first try at this kind of game.
It was Yuji Naka, who has been around the gaming industry for like 40 years. He worked on everything from the original Sonic games up to Nights into Dreams, up to Phantasy Star, up to this. And the fact of the matter is, Square Enix, he asked Square Enix if he could do this platformer. And they told him yes, but they didn't give him the resources or the time to make it any better than it was.
Here's the sad part. People complain, well, there's no story in this thing. And then we find out, oh, well, there was a story, but he couldn't include it. And if you really want to know the story of the game, here's a booklet. Here's a book, a comic book or something like that actually has all the story in it. So you know what the hell's going on in the game.
Yeah. And the fact of the matter is, like, it's the glimpses of it are there.
Well, here's the thing. I love the character design.
The glimpses of everything that he wanted to do are there.
I love the character design, for one thing. I mean, Balan himself, he's sort of like a I loved one person called him, what's it called, Willy Wonka if he was a Pokemon.
That's a good one. Yes. I really like the costume designs in this game. I love the music in Balan Wonderworld. I think Balan Wonderworld's music is absolutely fantastic. The platforming was serviceable. The level design was crummy.
And some of the hats made like what was it, the box that you could wear?
Just the box.
Yeah, it just made you, for whatever reason, it would just have you run off cliffs because it moved on its own at random.
The box fox costume randomly makes you turn into an immobile cube at intervals that you don't control. And if you have any sort of momentum, it carries through as the cube, meaning that if you're headed towards a ledge for a jump and you suddenly turn into a cube, you will slide right off the edge and into your death. I do not understand why that was made for it had to be. I never understood what the purpose of that one was, but at the same time, There are so many costumes in this game and so many more useful ones that I didn't get hung up on the stupid one. Nonetheless, it is a very half-baked game.
Like I said, all of these games are sleazy one way or the other, but only one of them was really just not.
Grand Theft Auto the trilogy is actually maliciously shit.
And let's not forget to whack Madden NFL 22. This is the first year that actually the mainstream press started to attack it. It's been shit for a decade, and I had to bite my knuckles every time I saw a glowing review from a magazine from someone who probably played the first 2 hours of it and said, okay, that's fine, or had really low expectations. But Madden NFL has been everything that's wrong with sports games. It's affected even sports games I like NBA 2K and MLB The Show, with these, and even Out of the Park Baseball uses those fucking cards now. But at least Out of the Park Baseball knows that's not what I'm here for. If you want to do it, that's fine. But Madden NFL 22 is like shit on everything that's specifically single player, and everything that's multiplayer revolves around this crappy MUT, Madden Ultimate Team. And the gameplay has gotten worse and worse. And you know who I feel bad for? The developers, because they know it's bad. They know it's bad. They can't say anything about it. They know it's bad. And one of the ex-producers would say, well, we thought about, bringing up these, we can include this, and EA say, no, we want you to have this, and this, and ignore that other shit, because it doesn't make us money. You pay $70 for this game, we want more money out of your pocket.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's why I wanted eFootball to succeed. I wanted it to be high quality because I think that Madden needs to move to a system where it becomes a free-to-play game, and then they just either polish or add more content to it.
Unfortunately, it's Konami who makes it, so don't count on that.
I know.
Actually, the one Metal Gear Solid survival game, it was actually decent.
Metal Gear Survive?
Yeah, it was actually decent if you invested a little bit of time in it. You can't say the same thing about their other games.
Yeah. They've been putting some effort recently into indie releases, which are decent. They did a remake of a old school Konami game as a 2D platformer this year, and it was pretty good.
Anyways, are there any other games that you really hated this year that you think could have been on the list?
Oh, geez.
Come on, there must have been one or two games that just sat on your balls.
Let me think.
Or was it just Grand Theft Auto the trilogy just overshadowed everything and just made you forget everything else bad?
Grand Theft Auto, that was like audastic how shitty that was.
Here's the thing. I think it might be the worst game of the decade, and we're only in 2021, damn it.
Yeah. To take people's nostalgia and maliciously make a shittier version of it and then destroy older versions so people can't go back to what they enjoy is so unmistakably garbage that I can't fathom anyone thinking that was a good idea, let alone executives who wanted to make a quick buck off of people's nostalgia.
They made Warcraft 3 remastered look good.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I can't really think of anything that I went out of my way to play that rubbed me the wrong way, quite like Grand Theft Auto.
Let's just do best game of the year. Go ahead, TJ.
Alrighty. Best game of the year: Deathloop, Forza Horizon 5, Halo Infinite, Metroid Dread, Psychonauts 2.
The winner for best game of the year is Psychonauts 2.
There it is.
And for one thing, it has the benefit of being multi-platform. But also, Halo 2, while it was the best Xbox Series X game to me, Halo Infinite, I think Psychonauts 2 overall was the best single-player experience of the year, to be honest.
I agree. Everything about that was cool as hell.
But we know that your best game of the year was Guilty Gear Strive, to be honest.
I mean, that is a personal choice, but I also think it's not very often that you have a game,
A fighting game.
that a game that literally changes its genre. I really do mean that when I say that, like, you will feel the effects, like the fighting game genre will feel the effects of Guilty Gear Strive for years to come.
You know, in a funny way, I think Psychonauts 2 did the same thing for open world platformers, really, to tell you the truth, now that I think about it. Because Psychonauts was out there, but Psychonauts 2 just refined everything and showed people, this is what we can do with this kind of game.
Yeah, because 3D platforming is tricky. Perspective and context of movement and ability and action is tricky. And Psychonauts 2 makes it feel smooth and really, really enjoyable. I like the way that Raz sort of magnetizes towards a certain action based off of the context of the situation. If he's jumping near a line, he's going to sort of magnetize to do the tightrope walk. If he's jumping towards a ledge, he's going to grab onto that ledge and jump up there. And I don't think I had but one occurrence where that didn't happen. Like, it was so contextually sound and so polished as far as the platforming went. I really appreciate that in a 3D platformer.
And as we said before, Psychonauts 2 has a very emotional story, but it is also funny as hell as well.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing, is that Double Fine always knows how to make, at the very least, games that'll make you chuckle to yourself. Make you, that sort of giggle, right? That's not quite a laugh, but it's like, yeah, that was cute. Games like Full Throttle and Grim Fandango, and even their lesser games like, what was the name of that game with the Matryoshka dolls? Stacking?
Mm-hmm.
Those sort of games. Psychonauts 2 had one or two laugh out loud moments.
Yes. It was it was quite a great adventure from beginning to end. And it did have its collectathon, which
that's the only thing that bothered me a little bit. And not that it was a collectathon, but if you got 101 levels or something like that to get the very last power, you basically completed the entire game and there was nothing for you to do.
Mm-hmm.
I would have liked if there was a new game plus in which you could start the game with the level that you're at. You'd still have to buy the other things, but now you can just go straight to a different thing. I was surprised there wasn't a new game plus the way it was manufactured, but maybe they'll patch that in at some point.
Yeah, but I also appreciate a game that does what it came to do and then rolls the credits and that's it. And it's like, go do something else now. I like a game that will respect my time and just be like, we have nothing else for you. You saw the whole thing.
Well, I mean, I did enjoy the post-climax after the game is over, talking with people and seeing how it affected them, I mean, that you can do it any time after you can just come back and see how people have changed or whatever. Like the conversations that Raz has with his father and about the terrible secret that we can't talk about right now, but how they're coping with it, afterwards. And he has a very bright outlook about it as well, even though his father was thoroughly devastated as much as Raz was.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I also like, this is not a spoiler, even though it happens after the game. When all is said and done, when you go to Truman Zanotto, and he's there with his, is it his granddaughter or his daughter? It's his daughter.
It's his daughter.
Right. With Lily, and when you use clairvoyance on him, he sees you as a date with a powder blue suit and a flower. Those dorky prom dates. I thought that was really cute.
I'm going to go ahead and share a certain spoiler, and I'm not going to share it explicitly, but I do want to say that it's one of my favorite things in that entire game. That the villain has it's a small world
Oh yeah, he has a small. It's a small world after all parody. Yeah,
all about how he's a hero, and everyone else is shitty. Is one of the funniest and most genius villain brain level. Like, it's one of the most genius looks into a villain's brain I've ever seen.
The other thing is that I got an achievement just for doing something that I was going to do anyway, and you get an achievement for smashing the 3 music boxes that are playing that song. Because it's annoying. You actually search out those boxes because that It's a Small World After All parody just gets on your nerves.
Mm-hmm. And it just continues to, like, escalate. That whole thing is an escalation of him just being like, I'm great, everybody else is wrong.
Yeah. And that's the one difference between him and everybody else, is that he's not mentally ill. He's just an extreme sociopath narcissist.
Mm-hmm.
Who just wants to have servants weighing on him, and he thinks all he has to do is get this monster. He thinks if he frees the monster will work for him. Boy, is he wrong.
All he wanted was his caviar, man.
He wants caviar, damn it. He wants his hotel rooms at his caviar, and he wants servants groveling at his feet.
Yeah. That is...
He is a man-child, literally.
I don't get to talk about that part much because I don't want to share spoilers, but I really, really appreciate the hell out of how much they made the villain a complete piece of shit when you get to his mind.
Yeah, and the thing is that you think it's going to be the monster, but it's not the monster. It's just the guy who thinks he can control the monster.
Mm-hmm.
And what I also like is that I'm glad I played Rhombus of Ruin before I played Psychonauts 2, because there is a sequel hook if you squint at it, because in Rhombus of Ruin, someone wanted to steal Raz's brain for himself. And one of the characters... It's not the big bad. It's not the monster. It's actually something you don't expect. It's a very aloof science type who's in control of all the brains in the jars. And he offhandedly says, well, you'll be a brain in the jar someday, too. Should have read your NDA. And it makes me think he's going to be the villain of Psychonauts 3.
Interesting.
It's hard to say all of that without giving away major plot points. But I managed to do it.
Yep.
So, Psychonauts 2, I would go with Psychonauts 2 as Game of the Year. Actually, maybe I'll be wishy-washy and make it a tie between Halo Infinite and Psychonauts 2. Both of the games are extremely emotional. You haven't gotten to the end of Halo Infinite story mode yet. I suggest you reevaluate when you say... It's not going to make you say it's better than Psychonauts 2, but it's surprisingly emotional for a Halo title.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and that's the other thing, before you go on. The villain in Halo Infinite, the villains, they, like Psychonauts 2, have a very good reason for being the way they are, and you actually get to sympathize with them. There's only one character you do not sympathize with, and that's the villain who's going to be the villain from moving forward, because they want to unleash something on the universe, and I'm not going to get beyond that. But what were you going to say?
Oh, I was going to say, Deathloop, and every one of these is an absolutely fantastic pick for best game of the year. Deathloop and Metroid Dread, we've been talking about a bunch already, but like, I really do think that Deathloop is not just the best that Arcane has ever done and like a grand evolution of Arcane's style, but I think it shows a lot of growth as far as what they've done with like studying other people's mechanics and game design elements and thoughtfully working into their game.
Does Arcane say what they're going to be doing next?
It's going to be that vampire co-op shooter.
Oh, right, Redfall. And that's actually coming out this year.
Uh-huh.
April.
But dang, like, as far as the single-player experience goes, and, like, that invasion mechanic with Juliana is an interesting thing. Like, regardless of whether you play with other people or not, it happens, and you'll simply have AI control Juliana when it happens in single-player. I think it's a cool setup for like just having that sort of multiplayer aspect in an otherwise single player game. Of course, Metroid Dread is like a love letter to longtime fans, as well as being its own solid platformer.
How scary do you think it is?
How scary?
Yeah.
When you're in the sound design is a huge thing in Metroid Dread as well. When you're in the area where an Emmy is running around, which again are those killer robots that can't be defeated until you get to a certain point. They do these little echolocation beeps and little chatters that tell you that they're searching for you, and you'll hear it like before you see them. You'll hear the tick, 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 doo, 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 doo. And it's so unnerving because you know they're trying to close in on you, and when you finally see it and you see its cone of vision, it's upsetting because you have to like scramble to get out of there. They move very quickly. So yeah, that game is scary. There is definite dread throughout as you're trying to get away from these things. I love Metroid Dread. It's so good. Every one of these games is good, and Psychonauts 2 very well deserves Best Game of the Year.
And like I said, it was real choice. It's hard to pick among them because there's like a hair's length between each of them in terms of quality. Mm-hmm. And also, I just realized they're all apples and oranges, basically. Only two of them are even vaguely like each other. I mean, Deathloop and Halo Infinite are both FPSs, but that's about as close as they become to being together. Yeah.
And then there's the games that like didn't make this list that were probably just barely off. Like Hitman was great, Guilty Gear was great,
Resident Evil Village.
Resident Evil 4 VR was like an incredible. Besides just being Resident Evil 4, it's also an incredible case study of how people can design combat interaction in a VR game.
Heck, and one of the most best reviewed games of the year was Tales of Arise, and it didn't make it.
And I'll tell you this. We didn't give it a lot of conversation here, but Life is Strange True Colors is a really, really good Life is Strange game.
I think one of the things that brings it back is that you can tell it's a don't nod game.
Yeah. But like the design of like being able, they always design these very coming of age stories around this around a power that
some psychic powers, yeah.
And I think the idea of like being able to see the colors of people's emotions is a very interesting one.
Yeah. And also, one of the good things about this being sort of a weakish game is that, some of these games, a lot of people don't know about. Like, I just pointed out Overboard to you, and it might be worth a look because
Fuga is a game that I'm going to go check out immediately after we're done with this episode.
Yeah, it's gotten rave reviews, and hey, look, if you miss Advance Wars, it's always nice to have an Advance Wars type combat game.
For sure.
Anyways, look for our show notes at gamingpodcast.net along with industry news and our gaming history articles. We enjoy feedback, so leave us comments at our blog at gamingpodcast.net. Also, hit us up at facebook.com/gamingpodcast. Subscribe to us on iTunes. Leave us some iTunes comments. Next week, we're going to be talking about the biggest news stories of 2021. And you can bet one of the stories will be Grand Theft Auto, the trilogy, the definitive edition will be one of those stories. We'll probably be talking about how Game Pass has gotten so huge that Sony's going to be implementing their own version of it. And, here's the thing. I like it when one company does something that is very consumer friendly and other companies say, oh shit, they're making money off that. Let's do it too. Because it only helps the consumer.
Yeah. Pardon. I am very interested to see how 2022 turns out with so many games that were kind of pushed back because of the pandemic and because of other delays. February itself is going to be a maelstrom of good games.
I don't know. Every time I see more and more about Starfield, I get more and more hyped. That's coming out in November.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is that I'm just hoping it's not another, it's like burned again with Fallout or Elder Scrolls. Oh, yeah, and the other thing we're probably going to be talking about, news of 2021 is, oh, God, so depressing to talk about, but all the Me Too stuff and all the sexual harassment of all these companies, it's like every week has been a new story about this person and that person, and oh, by the way, Bobby Kotick knew what was going on, all that shit. It's like a drag.
Yeah. I'm personally not investing in Activision Blizzard things until Bobby Kotick is out of that company.
Wow, I mean, that really ruined Diablo 2 for you, didn't it?
I hate everything that they have done to Activision Blizzard. I hate everything that they've done to their employees, and I hate that they are fighting so hard against their employees, asking for better conditions and better equality.
Yeah, that's the other thing. I don't know if you talked about this, and well, maybe it was because we didn't have any podcasts for the past 2 weeks, but there's also the unionization, and I love how some Blizzard execs say, well, you don't need to unionize. Yeah, bullshit.
If you just give it time, we'll fix things.
We gave you 3 years. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
I mean, California is fucking suing you.
And the gall of Bobby Kotick to have a story come out about him threatening to kill an employee and protecting a sexual abuser, only for him to come and say, if you don't think I'm invested in the health and positivity of this company, then you don't understand what I'm giving up. It's like, fuck you, dude. You don't get to say that after everything that's happened.
Yeah, that's like a 11th hour, ask for forgiveness.
I hate him. I hate him so much.
Well, I mean, if you just started hating him, you're like, 15 years.
Oh, no, I always thought that he was a colossal pile of rats in a human suit, but he has really shown the fullest extent of how reprehensible he can be this year.
He made John Riccitello look like a saint. Hell, he made Yves Guillemot look better, and this all started with Ubisoft.
Yeah. Yeah. And I hope that the folks that are over at Ubisoft fighting for many of the same things, I hope that they succeed as well.
And Riot Games hasn't learned a damn thing either. I mean, they did a lot of talk, and really nothing changed.
They did have to pay out $100 million to employees and contractors in the outcome of the recent sexual abuse lawsuit.
That's going to be pennies compared to what Activision Blizzard is probably going to have to pay, to tell you the truth. Right.
But I am happy to share the fact that, yes, they originally wanted to settle for $10 million, and the company or the firm that was putting the lawsuit against them said, "Fuck no, you don't get to get away with that with a slap on the wrist this time."
Well, like I said, California is suing Activision Blizzard, so they really have. It's not going to happen. Bobby Kotick's booting is not going to happen until Activision Blizzard finds it's financially bad to have them, because they don't.
The stock at Activision Blizzard has plummeted since all of this story has been going on, and then there was the fact that he actually wrote an email in Frances Townsend's name, basically putting whistleblowers on blast, and then signed her signature on it. That came out, and the fact that he lied to investors
Oh, God.
and the fact that he is plummeting the stock.
Here's the thing: we're wasting this on this postscript. This is stuff we should be talking next week about in the full episode. But like I said, this is just a taste of what you're going to get next week when we talk about the news stories of 2021, and then hopefully we'll start talking about games in 2022.
Yep, it's been a good episode, and it's not the best year for games, but it did have a lot of things I enjoyed.
Here's the thing. In a whole, it was not very good, but the highs were really high.
Yeah. I think that in a year where there were more fighting games, Guilty Gear Strive would still be the best among them.
Yeah. Well, like I said, it was nominee for Best PC Game and Best PlayStation 5 Game overall.
And Halo just shocked the hell out of everybody because 343 finally did it. They finally figured out how to make an amazing Halo game.
Finish Halo and then come back to me, because if you think the story is good so far in Halo Infinite, it gets really... It elevates in the last half of the game.
I will do just that.
Anyways, we will see you next week.
Have fun, be cool, play games, y'all.